Welcome to the next episode of CoVerse, the podcast, part of the Insurance Nerds Network, where we will be shining light on the best stories and storytellers in the industry. My name is Whitney Doig, and I'm joined by Zaira and a very special guest, Alan Demers. Alan, it's a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm glad to be here. So thanks for making time for me.
Absolutely. And I'm going to throw it over to Zaira, who's going to tell you what we're going to be discussing with Alan today. It's super exciting, so we can't wait to share with everybody.
Thank you so much, Whitney. Alan, first and foremost, congratulations on winning the Making Waves Award. Really, because making waves is essentially pointing at the verb making, right? And wanting to turn back and ask you, what waves do you feel most proud of making within the industry? And if you can talk us a little bit through what you do that actively does that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's always great to give and receive recognition. Kind of like Christmas, it works that way. So everybody really enjoys that. And I was particularly excited about it because I was nominated and selected by peers, which is a tremendous compliment. It doesn't always happen that way. And then for me personally, I've had a long career in the insurance space and experienced a very evolving industry. Some would describe that as a very slow evolving industry. And then I began concentrating on modernizing insurance since about 2016. And, when I worked for a carrier at that time, I was doing innovation work and launching a new part of the company. And then in 2019, I started my own consulting practice. So that's probably one example of my more recent waves, is because after 30 some odd years working for a couple carriers and work finding you every day, it's a little daunting to say, I'm going to go out there and make something out of nothing.
Yeah.
And so, I learned a lot along the way, have the, scuffs and scrapes, but it's been a tremendously rewarding opportunity. So again, making waves is all about innovating insurance and influencing others to make it happen. And so many are doing that every day, and it's fun to watch. And I also like to think sometimes people think of making waves, it has to be a tidal wave. And those don't happen very often, just like in the weather and the climate. They're episodic. It's just small waves that are constant, and they're hitting the shore, and they're making a difference every day and reshaping
Love it.
landscape.
Yeah.
So that's where I think it applies most to the insurance space.
I love that. That it doesn't have to be this huge, massive, significant thing, that you can still make an impact making small waves. I love that you called that out.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was
Sorry.
going to say, I'll give you an example. So one of the things we do, we have a daily newsletter. It's called Connected. And we started that mostly as a way to talk to our audience, and it's our form of marketing. And we do it every day, 5 days a week. And the idea is to curate the most relevant current news developments in the P&C and InsurTech space. So what it does, not only for us, is we stay on top of things because we do a lot of reading, but also we get countless, kudos and accolades for, hey, that we really love the newsletter. It gives me a lot of information. I can get through it pretty quickly. I can stay on top of things. And I think it's really important because we can all easily be heads down and forget sometimes there's a lot of things happening around us. So that's a small way, I think, that helps people stay on top of things and influences their knowledge and their thinking, and hopefully they can make positive outcomes from it.
Exactly. And I think Whitney would be a perfect example for this, right? Because she was a teacher at some point. But I've always said that learning doesn't go as profoundly within you until you teach it. So if you learn something, and then if you understand it well enough to be able to teach it or share it with somebody, that's when you reach that level of like real deep learning. You're not going to forget it because you've shared it. So I think having this newsletter as something that you share is amazing, but I agree with you that you more profoundly understand information when you can curate it for somebody else and truly teach yourself the way you're teaching others.
Yeah, I think that's extremely well said. And then in my day job, sort of the same theme. We do consulting and advisory work. We work with insurtechs, established providers and vendors, insurance companies, and investors. and they share a common need to gather information or navigate through what's a really complex insurance space, and or they often want to be connected with industry decision makers because that's important to their business. So, again, I think on a large or small scale, it's very rewarding when you can make an introduction that leads to some kind of business flow, some kind of business deal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or even it's on a small scale, it's just someone has a piece or a nugget of information that you don't have, and it just brings a little bit more color to the decision-making process. So those are all really the kinds of things we do on a daily basis. And then every once in a while, we make a bigger wave or a bigger splash, and we bring a deal home. And both the insurance company, for example, or the investor, for example, they're both very happy because they've done some kind of business together. And that's particularly rewarding. And as you both know, that does not happen overnight.
No.
Unfortunately, it can sometimes take a couple years in the work. So, but when it does happen, the waves keep coming.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like that thought too, is kind of like when you start making those waves, whether they're big or small, they keep coming. And it's kind of like when you throw a rock into the water and you see the ripples, the ripple effect coming out. So you're affecting others, but you're also doing it over and over and over again. And I think it's great and it's amazing. And I love seeing when people make such an effort to put valuable content out there for others, and then it comes back to you tenfold. It makes me so happy.
Yeah, and I think along those lines, mentoring, pardon me, mentoring and guidance of others is really important. And I can't even compare the number of times someone's helped me over 30 some odd years and count that all up. I'm sure I still have a lot more to give back to make sure my balance sheet is clean when I finish. And so you constantly reminded sometimes what you're doing is, kind of pro bono. You're talking to someone. It may not be a good fit to do work, or it may not be someone that you can help directly, but somebody else that can help them. Or they're just seeking advice. It's like, hey, I'm thinking of launching this kind of company. What do you think? And so it's always, fun to hear those stories and to try to help. And sometimes that may mean they don't proceed, and that's okay too.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, that saves them a lot of time too.
Exactly.
it does. And it's that whole community aspect that I think the insurance space does a really, really good job of supporting people with community or your tribe or whatever it is that you want to call it. And it's so key to people's successes to have a really strong community. So I'm always so appreciative to people like you that has had really good mentors, but you're also giving back. And I think that that's so important in this space to be able to continue growing the community, to mentor people coming up in the industry, and really doing your part to ensure that people are growing and constantly learning more and more and more in the space. So we appreciate everything that you're out there doing when you're making waves every single day, whether they're big or small.
I'm totally with you. It's an everyday effort. You don't always consciously think of it that way, but I think since getting this award, I now have a new standard to live up to. So I'm extremely grateful for InsurTech Hartford for the honor and the privilege, but kind of raises the bar, because people take notice, like, hey, I saw that you won something. Tell me all about it. And I think that'll be true for the next generation next year to see who gets nominated and selected, which I'll be a part of. So I'll leave that on a high note. Making waves is an everyday job.
Oh,
Everyday
love that.
job. Everyday job. And it doesn't matter how big or small.
Exactly.
Well, Alan, we appreciate your time so much today, and we loved getting to hear about how you're out there making waves and mentoring others in the community and how important what you do is. So we appreciate you taking the time to hop on and chat with us today. Thanks to all of our listeners for joining us today, and we will see you on the next one.
Thanks so much.